I'm going to find the right camera for you personally. But first we have to talk about what type of photography you do, what your budget is, and whether a camera is right for you, or maybe you would get better results with an upgraded smartphone. I'm going to make this video easy to navigate. Jump down to the description and you'll be able to skip to a specific part of the video that matches your specific shooting style. You can also find links to all of the products down there. Appreciate you using our affiliate links. First, why would you listen to me? Well, I'm a professional photographer with more than 25 years of experience. I'm also the author of Stunning Digital Photography, the #1 photography book in the world with more than 20 hours of video. And as part of that and the bigger online learning community, I've helped thousands of people pick out their first cameras, but also watched as they've used them, watched the things that they struggled with, the people who quit using the camera and didn't get the value out of it, and the people who went on to become professionals. I've followed all of them, and I want you to get the best value for your money. We're also one of the few big photography channels that has never accepted money or free gear from any camera or lens manufacturer. That means we are beholden to none of them. And you'll see we jump between different brands as we go, depending on who is best suited for a particular style and budget. First, I want to plug our educational material, including Stunning Digital Photography, the Art and Science of Photography video training series. If you get into portrait photography, we have professional portrait training and our flash training videos. And eventually, you'll want to do some great post-processing. You can use our Lightroom, Lightroom Classic, and Photoshop books. All of these come with video. So even if you don't like books or ebooks, you can just watch the video. But I promise, especially Stunning Digital Photography will really get you started. And the ebook is $10 before this CAM22 coupon, which is 22% off at northrop.photo. And if you spend just a few minutes reading that every day, you will get far better pictures, even if you just keep using your smartphone. First, let's talk about whether or not you should upgrade your smartphone to a camera. Some people buy a camera and they have expectations that it mostly behaves like their smartphone. That is absolutely not true. A lot of new cameras, especially those under $1,000, are not going to immediately produce better images than a high-end smartphone would. Like, I personally shoot with the iPhone 13 Pro, and it beats most of my cameras with their kit lens for just casual shooting, especially low-light photography, things like astrophotography. The newest smartphones are technically better, but they're also much easier to use. When you switch to a traditional camera, they all have Wi-Fi, they all have Bluetooth, they all have apps, and they all are terrible. Nobody uses them long term. You might dabble with them, but check the reviews for those apps. They all have like 1.5, 2.5 stars. Instead, what you do is you end up taking out a memory card and putting that into a computer or connecting it through a memory card reader to your smartphone before editing. And it's this extra step that really gets people hung up because it takes a little bit more time. And a lot of people hate doing that so much they just end up going back to their smartphone. But I don't want you to buy a camera and then switch back to your smartphone, because then you've wasted money. That's why I want you to know about this ahead of time. You also really have to read the manual for any traditional camera, because they have terrible, unintuitive user interfaces. These are devices that seem to have been designed about 20 years ago. Every single brand is this way. Whereas most young people that I talk to, they're not accustomed to reading a manual. They expect to just pick up something and have it be so intuitive that it teaches them how to use it. That's not the case. You have to study something like Stunning Digital Photography. You have to work out the camera settings, how to use it. You can do this 20, 30 minutes a day for a month, and you'll be creating really powerful images in that time. I promise, but you can't jump into it with the expectation that you're going to be a natural at it. These cameras also will have a high error rate before you finish learning them. You'll get a lot of motion blur. Your smartphones automatically eliminate that. In other words, at first, you're probably going to be taking worse pictures with a real camera until you move up that learning curve. So approach buying one of these real cameras with patience. Here are the people who really should buy a traditional camera. If you're looking for a hobby, something to put your time into, if you have extra energy that you want both a technical and an artistic outlet for, a camera is a perfect choice. With it, you can learn to see and appreciate and capture the beauty around you. It's amazing. Sports photographers really need a traditional camera. Smartphones are not yet good at that. Wildlife photographers, especially those shooting smaller birds, maybe at the feeder, I have great recommendations for you that your smartphone cannot beat. Also, serious portraiture. Casual portraiture, especially the iPhone 13 Pro, really good at that. But you can't get that real bokeh. The people who match this criteria should probably take the camera budget you've set aside, add it to your smartphone budget, and get a better smartphone. Specifically, I recommend the Google Pixel 6 Pro, or if you're an iPhone user and you don't want to switch, I recommend either the iPhone 12 Pro or the iPhone 13 Pro. I'm an iPhone 13 Pro user. If your budget's under $1,000 and you're saying, I just want better image quality, a traditional camera might give that to you, but it also comes with all that extra payload. You're probably going to overall get better image results by simply buying one of the latest smartphones. If you're a person who does not read the manual, and does not like technical stuff, and doesn't want to be faced with a challenge, you should stick with your smartphone. If you never make prints bigger than an 8x10, if you mostly just publish your images online on Instagram, you should probably stick with a smartphone. Most serious photographers with traditional cameras are going to be importing their pictures into a computer. You can definitely do this with a smartphone or a tablet, but it gets a little bit cumbersome because of the storage limitations. Now let's move on to traditional camera recommendations. I'm going to start with general purpose cameras. These are the SUVs or the Toyota Camrys of the automotive world. You know, I'm not talking about a pickup truck that's specialized for hauling or a sports car that's specialized at going really fast. These are cameras that can do everything at different price points. And I want to say 2022 sucks so far. So many cameras are out of stock. I am limiting my recommendations to things that I could actually find available online for you at this time. All the prices from the time I did this last year have gone up significantly, so I'm making a lot of used recommendations, and I'm going to be recommending my partner KEH here quite regularly. They don't sponsor this video, but they sponsor other videos, and we work really closely with them. Go to this link and use this coupon code to get 5% off their used gear. It all comes with a warranty and a return period. Okay, the cheapest camera I can recommend in good conscience is a used Nikon D5300. It's a great camera that can do just about anything. Get it with the kit lens, but especially the 18 to 135. If you can find that, I really like that better than the 18 to 55 lens. You can expect to pay between $430 and $550, and it's a great way to get into the hobby of photography. A step up from that is the Sony A6400 at a little under $1,000 with the kit lens. It's a mirrorless camera, so it's a little more advanced. It has a great autofocus system, and people generally love it. If you're willing to pay for style and fun, like I am, I suggest a Fujifilm X-T3. All the Fuji cameras are super fun, so if you find like an X-T30 or even an X-T20 available used, go ahead and grab it if it fits your price point. Fuji has a great selection of lenses in general, but my favorite camera of all time from them is the X-T3, so check that one out. At the same price, about $1,300, I really like the Canon RP. It's a full frame camera, so it has a bigger sensor, it offers better image quality than the Fuji cameras will, and it's generally a better general purpose camera because it has a flip forward screen. In fact, this is what I'm filming on now. You see, put my money where my mouth is. I absolutely love the Canon RP. I've recommended it many times to my own family members. If you have even more budget, I would check out the Canon R6. It's a step up from that. It really is a great sports camera and can even do some pretty good wildlife. A step up from that, $5,000 with the lens, is the Canon R5, one of the best cameras ever made of all time. Still my wife's main daily camera. If you upgrade to the R5, I would get the Canon 24-70 f2.8 instead of the 24-105 f4. The 24-70 f2.8 is sharper and it's a better fit for the R5's higher megapixels. My own personal camera is the Sony Alpha 1. The body alone is $6,500, and then you're going to spend at least $2,000 more on the 24-70 f2.8 lens, which is a good match for it. The A1 is the best camera in the world at like everything, at sports, at wildlife, at landscapes, at portraits. That's why for me it's the camera that I use for everything except for video. This is it here on my big old wildlife lens. Once you pick out a camera, you're gonna need some help, and you can read the manual, but we also have a wide variety of tutorials for most modern cameras right here at sdp.io/tutorials. This is completely free. Now let's talk about which camera you should get for vlogging, or even if vlogging is just one of the criteria. You can use all these cameras for general purpose things, but they are specialized for vlogging. At the low end, I recommend the Canon 70D. I can find it used with a lens for $550 right now. You could also look at the Canon M50. It's just I could not find any of those actually in stock. They seem to be sold out. A step up from that is the Sony ZV-E10, a good general vlogging camera that you can pick up for about $800, extremely compact and versatile. Again, I'm going to recommend the Canon RP, a step up from that. Again, I actually use this to film with, even though it's only $1,300, and I obviously have more expensive cameras. This one is just fine, and it has worked for me for years. I love the Canon RP. And the camera we use when we're out and about, I'm going to grab it. This is the Canon R6. It produces incredibly high quality video with amazing autofocus. Check it out. It is like the best vlogging camera of all time, except for maybe the Sony a7 III, which is very similar, but the Sony a7 III can record for longer than 30 minutes and it doesn't overheat. It's a little bit more expensive, but it's also a little more powerful of a camera. Let me put this away. Now let's move on to landscape and travel photography. Here, I'm specializing the cameras around producing large prints with tons of dynamic range. These are both body and lens choices because you cannot separate them. I cannot understate how amazing the Google Pixel 6 Pro is, even for things like long exposures like waterfalls, but especially things like astrophotography. It can outdo full-frame cameras, especially for low-light conditions, because it has things like built-in star trackers. The effects that it produces are absolutely amazing, and it's only $900, and it's a full-blown smartphone too. Below that price point, just get a general purpose camera. They're all okay, but if you really want to outdo that Google Pixel, you got to step up the megapixels, and I'm going to recommend the Nikon D800E used. It's a few years old, but it has an amazing 36 megapixel sensor, no anti-aliasing filter, and on that I used this combo for years. Put the Tamron 24-70 f2.8, either the generation 1 or the generation 2. They're both fantastic general purpose landscape lenses. If you want to go mirrorless, a little bit smaller, a little bit lighter, check out the Sony a7R II used. That with the 24-105G, an excellent landscape lens, will run you about $2,000. And Sony has a great infrastructure, so you can upgrade your lenses later if you want to spend some more money. I used this as my main camera for years, the Sony a7R IV. It has a fantastic 60 megapixel sensor, but to get the most out of that, you have to use really sharp lenses. So I'm recommending the Sony 16-35 GM, which is sharper than their current 24-70. This is a fantastic combination and the best you can do for producing incredibly detailed landscape images with tons of dynamic range. Again, I want to send you to Northrop.photo to actually educate yourself. The book Stunning Digital Photography has a huge section on sports, on wildlife, on landscapes, on travel, on portraits, all the things you want to do. It'll show you how to get the most out of your smartphone, your drone, or your traditional camera. You can read the paperback, you can read the ebook, or you can just watch the videos. You can join our Facebook group and get individual support from Chelsea and I and so many other readers. And it has a full money-back guarantee. We have more than 2 million readers at this point. It's been the top-selling book of the last decade. It's kind of a big deal. Anyway, check it out. It's a best first step into photography. And the ebook's $10, cheapskate. Oh, Cam 22, you get 20% off. Now let's talk about sports. Maybe you have a kid that's into sports, or maybe you're just into sports yourself. Your smartphone is not good at this because it doesn't have a telephoto lens and it really can't get close enough for you. The lower end cameras here are going to be DSLRs because low-end mirrorless cameras aren't as good at sports. The viewfinder is laggy, so it's kind of hard to keep up with fast-paced movement. So my entry-level sports camera is the Canon T6i. Make sure you get the 18-135 lens because the 18-55 lens isn't going to be long enough for most sports. You're going to be pretty happy with this for just about all outdoor sports. If you want to go indoor sports, it gets a little more challenging. I would suggest upgrading to a Canon 7D or better yet, a Canon 7D Mark II. And the best I can do is the Tamron 70-200 f2.8 lens at these links. This is going to be a really powerful combo, and the longer reach of the 200mm lens is good for even shooting across the field. So if you have a kid playing soccer or football and you're on the sidelines, this is a really powerful combination at 10 frames per second. A smaller step up from that, the Nikon D500 is really one of my favorite cameras ever. It feels so good in the hands. Again, I would recommend putting the Tamron 70-200 on there to keep your price down, but if you can find a used Nikon 70-200 f2.8, please do put that on. If you want to shoot indoor sports at all, avoid the f4 zooms. Stick with f2.8, or better yet, get like a 50 f1.2 prime, depending on the focal length you need. Now we're getting into budgets where mirrorless cameras really excel at sports. The Canon R6, the body is $2,500, and a lens will cost you about another $1,700, bringing us to a $4,200 price point. But the Canon R6 is amazing for sports at a full 20 frames per second, shooting silently. It produces really amazing images with fantastic autofocus. A big step up from that is, again, my favorite camera, the Sony Alpha 1, with 30 frames per second raw, and a really wide selection of lenses, including the brand new Sony G Master 70-200 f2.8, which is incredibly sharp. This combo, indoor, outdoor sports, has been absolutely fantastic for me. Yeah, you're going to be spending close to 10 grand, but why not dream, right? Okay, maybe you're a portrait photographer. You want to just take pictures of people. There's a lot to portrait photography besides just the gear, so please promise me you'll get our how to use flash training videos, our professional portraits training, or at least stunning digital photography, and our Photoshop book, so that you can learn the post-processing and things like posing and lighting and getting a good expression, because those things all make a bigger difference to the final images than just the camera that you buy. At a basic price point, I recommend the Apple iPhone 13 Pro here. The bokeh on this new smartphone is really pretty smooth and very passable. Portraits on older smartphones were bad. They've gotten so much better. I think if I showed up to a professional photo shoot with a smartphone, I would look ridiculous. Instead, I would recommend getting a traditional camera, if nothing else, to make yourself appear more professional. At the most basic price point, I'm recommending the Nikon D5300, and I would also get the Nikon 50mm f1.8G, so you could blow out the background for nice professional headshots. Really powerful combination. A step up from that, the full-frame Nikon D610 with the Tamron 70-200 lens. At $1,800, you could upgrade to the Nikon D750. I know so many professional wedding and portrait photographers that shoot with this every day. It totally produces sellable professional results. A step up from that, again, I really like the Canon R6. It's only 20 megapixels, but that's plenty for portraits. And the 70-200 f2.8 RF Canon lens is amazing. And if you have a little more budget, get the 85mm f1.2, which is my favorite portrait lens ever. The bokeh on that thing is amazing. A step up from that, more megapixels so you can make bigger prints, sell them for more money, is the Canon R5, again with that 85 and 70-200 f2.8. Now let's talk about wildlife, the most challenging of all types of photography. It puts the most pressure on the body and the lens because you're shooting at a distance and tracking fast-moving subjects that don't want anything to do with you. People come to me and they want to spend $100 or $200 on a camera for wildlife because their smartphones just cannot do it at all. That's tough, because you can see this gear is big, it has a lot of glass in it, it's always going to be expensive. I've tried so hard to find something at the low end. My current recommendation is the Canon PowerShot Zoom, which is technically like a monocular, you know, like one lens and a binocular, but it does take pictures, and they're not bad. They're not great. They're good enough to identify birds at your feeder, that kind of thing, and it gets you into the hobby, and it's $250, and it's the best I can do. It's fun. Get it for somebody. It's a great gift. I can also recommend the Canon 7D DSLR used and the Canon 400mm f5.6 lens. This is the combo that I personally used for many years and produced real professional results that I sold for money. It still produces great results, and together it's under $1,000. If you have a little extra budget, upgrade to the 7D Mark II, which produces better images and has better autofocus. A step up from that, the Nikon D500 with the Nikon 200 to 500 lens. This combination is like so unbeatable, and at $2,200, a really great value, especially if you find it used. A step up from that, especially in portability, if not image quality, is the Canon R5, a mirrorless general purpose camera. Attached to that, the Canon 800mm f11. I always get slack. People say, oh, it's an f11 lens, it can't possibly produce good results. It does. We have shot with it so much. And side by side with this beast, and often you cannot tell the difference. Take some practice, but you can produce amazing results with that, I promise, and it's a lens you don't mind hiking with. My rig here is almost $20,000. It's the Sony A1, which is $6,500, and the $13,000 600mm f4. These results are basically unbeatable right now. The autofocus tracking, the frames per second, absolutely amazing, beautiful. You're probably going to want to invest in a big gimbal tripod and all that too, but we have separate videos digging deep into wildlife gear. That is it. If I have not answered your question, go down to the comments below and ask it. And if you are a knowledgeable person, well, you could reply to some of those comments and try to help some people out. I'll try to be in the comments too. Head to northrop.photo to complete your photography education, because buying a car without learning to drive doesn't do you any good, right? Buying a camera without learning the art and science of photography will not produce good images. You need to educate yourself. Use the coupon code CAM22 to get 22% off. It's 22 because it's 2022, right? I'm Tony Northrop. Don't forget to subscribe. We have new videos all the time. And it's a good way to thank me because I've totally worn myself out making this video. I got to go get some tea. Thanks and bye.